Yes, you can sit there.
Just for a few minutes.
Oh yeah.
Cold in the shade.
Yeah. That's why I said that, and I hope that sun don't bother you or whatever.
Oh no 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 no! I'm just gonna tell my family what kind of bagels they can have at here if they, in the end will get up.
Oh, okay. I hope I don't disturb you.
Mm. I hope I don't.
No, you don't. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're doing okay this morning. As you can see, I did come on time this morning, prepared to talk about um, are you listening when God calls? Are you so busy that you can't hear Him when He's trying to speak to you? Let's get into it this morning. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. And yeah, I'm going to do the best I can to be as transparent as I can. Good morning, Judith. How are you? Hadn't talked to you in a long time. It's been a minute. So just to again, like I like to be very transparent when I'm talking to you guys. So yesterday, I was out and about, and you know, again, you all know I'm on a transformational journey, right? And I was thinking like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not all these things I was thinking. And so I woke up this morning about 2:43. And y'all know whenever you wake up at 3 in the morning, you know what time it is. It's time to pray. It's time to either pray for your loved ones, ask God questions, or He want to speak to you. So when I woke up, I was like, Lord, what is it that you want me to know this morning? Now, again, those were my thoughts yesterday. And um, so this morning, as I was praying, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get my Bible out. And I don't know what you're going to tell me. But I ended up at Jeremiah, first chapter, Jeremiah. And this is for somebody else too. I know. I said, because God, whatever you give me, you know, I'm gonna give to the people this morning. And I know it's not only for me, because God speaks to us every day. He speaks to everybody. A lot of times people don't think He do, but He does. In a still voice, He can speak to you through messages. He can speak to you through somebody else. He can speak to you in stillness and in quietness. But either way, He gonna speak, and you have to put yourself in a position to hear. So as I was reading Jeremiah this morning, I'm like, God, what are you saying to me? So in essence, in Jeremiah, in verses, well, the first Jeremiah is a passage of declaration of purpose, identity, and divine assignment. First of all, Um, and in the first verses 1 through 3, Jeremiah is a young man from a priestly family, and he's living during a time of national unrest. God is about to shake the nations, and He calls Jeremiah to his voice, to be his voice, excuse me. And it goes on, it says, I knew you and I set you apart. Okay, this to some people, it may be, you know what is she talking about? Well, this isn't for you. But for the person that's wondering and thinking, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me? Where do I go from here? This is for you. He says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Now, for me, I feel like it's saying God is affirming that He's called you to do, and myself. I was created for a purpose. You was created for a purpose. Your voice, your story, your pain, and all the healing is a part of His plan. And so as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, all right, keep speaking, Lord, And as I went on to read, Jeremiah started, he told the Lord, he said, listen, I can't speak because I'm too young. And God's response was, do not say I'm too young. Do not be afraid because I am with you. In essence, maybe you felt like it's too late for you to get started, or too late for you um to to step out on God's word, or you feel like you're too flawed or too broken to lead, or too whatever you went through in your past was too treacherous to even lead people. But God is saying, don't let fear or your past wounds silence your voice, because he's with you. That's what I was taking from that this morning for me. And for whoever else this is for, I prayed before I got on here and said, Lord, let it reach the people that it's supposed to reach. And again, I ain't perfect. Not saying I'm the best speaker, not saying this or that. But God is telling me, listen, you ain't got to be all of that. You just go and let me do the speaking. Let me say what needs to be said, right? So again, just being obedient to the word. Um, so it goes on to say in verses 9 through 10, you know, I have put my words in your mouth. Oftentimes you got to worry about what you need to say or what you're going to say, and you have to be still and let God speak to you, and he'll give you exactly what to say, when to say it. And but we have to yield ourselves, because again, sometimes people look at the messenger instead of listening to the message. And God will speak through anybody. He'll use anybody to get his word across to you. And however it needs to get passed through, he would definitely use it for that purpose, and use you or anybody else. Um, and for me, I was like, God has put words in my mouth, my testimony, my with the boldness and the encouragement that I give other people. For everything that I have been through, it wasn't for naught. And I pray and ask God to give me the boldness that I need to speak, to encourage other people through and by my testimony. So I know this isn't a regular, like we were normally talk in the morning times, but I wanted to get on here and share that with you guys this morning. Are you listening to God? Have you put yourself in a position to hear what he has to say to you? Because we're so busy, everything is going as a throughout the day. You're on social media, your work, and you got the kids to take care of, you got your family to take care of. But when do you really set time aside just to hear the voice of the Lord? And again, when he speaks, it ain't loud, it's subtle. It's subtle. I know I had put a poll on here. Let me see if anybody answered the poll this morning so far. Hold on, my computer. Let me hold on one second. So in the poll, it says, how do you usually recognize God is speaking to you? And 50% of you guys said in quiet and still moments. 20% says through dreams and visions. And 40%, oh, it's a tie. 40% says doing worship and prayer. For me, I hear him early in the morning. He wakes me early in the morning, in the quietness, and also through what was the other one I had up here? Through people and messages. I've had people to come and say things to me. They don't even know me, and I know it's from God. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So Tom says, good morning, blessings, and be blessed. Productive Thursday today. Hope everyone is feeling well. Yes, I am feeling fabulous. Um, Tom said he was reading Jeremiah 29:11 this morning. Okay, okay. Miss Veronica, to me that means no excuses to be, not to be who need you. He needs you to be, not what he wants you to be. But I'm going to use you, and what he's telling me. My assignments might change. Just trust him. Yeah. Good morning, Frankie G. Absolutely. Trust the process, even when you don't understand it. Trust the process. I think I put that in the community tab this morning. A lot of times too, when we don't understand it, when it don't look right, when it don't feel right, we quick to forget to remind ourselves, just trust the process. When he cutting people out of our lives for a reason, trust the process. When you get fired from a job, when you didn't get that promotion, still trust the process. When you it's just so many things that goes on when he's taking you through this life, and when he's trying to get you to where he needs you to be for him, in order for him to use you. It ain't always pretty, and it don't always feel good. And then we got to constantly remind ourselves, trust the process. Even when um you have to, when he's giving you an unction to speak his word, or speak life into somebody, even when it's uncomfortable, we still have to trust it. This is what God wants me to say, and it's not about me, it's about him. And then we have to also remember to always stay humble and decrease ourselves so God can use us, right? God speaks through all of them. You are absolutely right, Frankie. He speaks through every last one of them. You can literally be on social media scrolling, and something will come through. And I don't know if this is a glare on here, but I got a glare. He'll speak to you through someone else's content. That's why I said, Lord, whoever this is meant for today, let it find them. Because a lot of times people think they're not worthy because of their past. God can't use me. Look at what I've done. But oh, yes, he can. And he can also take his grace from you, take his grace from you, take the anointing away from you if you don't use it. If he's giving you, if he loves you enough just to wake you up in the morning and talk to you and say, listen, this is what I want you to say today. My grace is with you. I'm with you. Don't worry about people coming against you, because if I be for you, I'm more than the whole world against you. Yeah, you're going to get some resistance. You're going to get some pushback, but I need you to say this. And you get up there all nervous and, well, they're going to be talking junk or this, then the other. You can't look at all of that. You got to be like, okay, this is what God told me to say, and this is what it is. Either you take a look, don't get mad at the messenger. Get mad at the one who told me to tell you. That's what you do. But see, when you get that mindset, you really done just listen. You done shrink, and but this is the thing. We're human though. You're human. You get a little nervous or whatever. You get a little nervous. I'm gonna say it, but you ain't gonna like it. But this is what God is telling me, and we got to get out of that, because just imagine, like literally imagine, like, you just know, and you, even though, like, now we feel his presence and we know God is real, and we walk knowing that he's like right beside us. But if he was like in human form standing right beside us, who would be scared to say something? Who would be scared to walk up into a place and, like, and be like, I ain't worried about nothing, and this is what needs to be said, and this is what needs to be done, because look, my daddy right here beside me, because I ain't worried about nothing. We would do it. Wouldn't think twice about it. But we have to have that same mindset, because he's with us spiritually, right? Not in the physical form, but he's with us spiritually. I know one time, this particular time in my life, listen, God was speaking to me, because let me tell you something. People would call me crazy, and at the time I didn't care, because what else did I have to lose? Hell, I had lost everything. I have nothing else to lose. When God started speaking to me, when God started directing me in places to go, which way to go, who to talk to, listen, I walked in boldly, because at that point in time, I didn't have nothing else to lose. I didn't have nothing else to lose. And when they told me, and I'll come back at some point and tell it, but when they was like, no, this can't be, listen, I stood 10 toes down, flat footed, and said, yes, it is going to be. I don't care what my credit looked like. I don't care. I know what God told me. And this is what he said. Man, I was so bold with it. People used to call me crazy because everything he told me he would do, he did it. And then some. I had people asking me, what kind of God you serve to do da da da? I said, we all serve the same God. We all serve the same God. You just got to get in tune with him. But at this point in my life, listen, my back was up against the wall. I done lost everything. But I didn't lose God. I didn't. He was still with me, and he was still talking to me. I didn't care what my circumstance looked like. It was so ugly. When I say ugly, I'm gonna get like my aunt. It was so ugly. But God still was there in the midst of the ugliness. And he still was saying, Veronica, don't look at the situation you're in, but I need you to go. For example, he said, I need you to go to the provision store up here. And I need you to go in there. And I don't need you to speak to the first salesperson. I need you to ask for the person that's over there. I promise you, God was talking to me like that. And when I tell you, at first, when he was speaking to me, I was just like, I don't know about all that. They done already turned me down. And he had got on me so heavy. It was so heavy. I couldn't stay on my job. I told myself, I said, I got to go. And I would always tell one person to be a witness. So they could say, oh my God, she said it and how it was going to happen. And this is exactly how it happened. I told my friend Joanne, I said, Joanne, listen, girl, I done got turned down. And I'm gonna tell y'all, this is what it was. I was married and my husband was on drugs and we had lost everything we had. I mean, do y'all remember the rental center where you rent furniture? We was renting furniture. I had just had my daughter and I didn't know he was on drugs, but when it all came out, when I tell you we lost everything, we lost everything. We were sleeping on the floor. Now this is my testimony, and I'm not ashamed of it because somebody's gonna come across this and it's gonna help them. We were sleeping on the floor. They had turned the lights out. I was working, but let me tell you something. I was getting garnished. There was garnish in my check. So when I did get my check, I only had enough, just enough to pay the babysitter. He on drugs. He get his check. He done smoked it up. So we ain't have nothing. Again, they coming knocking on the door, wanting to get the furniture. Listen, at first I was like, no, y'all ain't getting it. I'm going to get the money to you. Didn't have the money to give to him. But I was still going to church. Still, praying, God, look, just didn't know how we got into that situation. Well, honey, they done come in. Finally, I just said, come and take it. They done took all the furniture. We sleeping on the floor. Turn the lights out. We didn't have no lights, no nothing. When I tell you, what's the worst your credit can get? Yeah, it was worse than that. Because this is my testimony. Let me tell you something. Am I ashamed? No. Because look at where God done brought me from. During that time, my mom was telling me, she said, you can't keep living like this. I'm going to call social service on it. If you don't get these kids, I'm up here in this house with no lights and y'all sleeping on the floor. But I had took my vow so seriously that I was like, I'm going to stand by my husband until I couldn't stand by him no more. So I had no other choice but I moved back home with my mama. And I moved back home with my mama. And in that little small room, was my bedroom when I grew up in, I was praying. I was asking God. I said, God, you got to make a way for us. I was just praying for him for his addiction and this and the other. And so God spoke to me in my mom's house. He says, give him another chance. And by this time, he had got into rehab. He had got into rehab, and he was asking me, he wanted his family back. And I'm like, okay, because God has to give him another chance. I gave him another chance. Now, mind you, we done lost everything we had. We ain't had no money to do nothing with, right? And so I told him, I said, we went looking for places to rent again. And I said, we can't afford none of this stuff because, mind you, they was garnishing our checks. My exact words to God, I said, God, I said, listen, I said, the only thing that we can afford to pay, the only amount that we can afford to pay in rent, listen to me very carefully. I said, is $200. Now, where you going to find a place for $200 in rent? But I stood in my mama's kitchen. I said, Lord, you said to give him another chance. And I said, but we need to be together as a family. And I said, the only amount of rent that we can afford to pay right now is $200. And I don't know where that's at, but I need you. I need you to open up a door for me. I go to church. I go to church and praise God through the service and everything, came back home. And when I came back home, the phone rings and I answered the phone. It was a lady at the church. She says, Sister Veronica, she said, listen, she said, do you and your husband have a place to stay? I said, no, ma'am, we don't. She said, well, look, me and my husband, she says, we bought this new trailer. She said, we bought this new trailer, and their oldest son, she said, he don't even want to stay there. He want to move to another city. And she says, and I was asking God, who can I rent this trailer to that's going to take care of it? And she said, you dropped in my spirit. And I said, oh, wow. I was like, wow, thank you. Thank you. And I said, but Sister Williams, I said, I don't even know how much you're going to charge for rent. And I said, at this point, and she stopped me. She said, well, listen. She said, and I talked to my husband about it. She says, will $200 be too much? Did y'all hear what I just said? She said, will $200 in rent be too much? I said, oh my God. And at that moment, I just started crying because I knew God was with me. I just started crying. And I said, no, ma'am, it won't. And now, mind you, we had lost everything. We had no furniture, no nothing. And then she said, well, me and we'll move the furniture out of the trailer because she said it's fully furnished and we'll move the furniture out. And I said, oh, okay. And then she called back and she says, listen, God told me to ask you, do you have any furniture? I says, no, ma'am, we don't. She said, look, I'm going to leave the furniture in the house if it's okay with you. She said, it ain't much. She said, but if it's okay with you, I'll leave it in there. Y'all can just, use it. And when you get ready to buy your new furniture, we'll just move it out. God has set it up to where when we got over there, it was a brand new trailer. It was 2 bedrooms, fully furnished. Now, she downplayed it a lot because she was just like, it's just some old furniture we had. Nice furniture. God showed up for me then. And I just kept listening to him, praying to him. Now we had lived there for like a year. Now I had started because God had spoke to me one night in a dream. And in the dream, he says, new home now. That's exactly what came to me. It was on a Saturday morning. I sat straight up in the bed and said, oh my God. And I looked at my husband at the time. I said, listen, I said, it's time for us to start looking for our new home. He said, what? I said, God just showed me that we're getting a new home. And he looking at me, he was like, well, we ain't got no money. I said, he didn't say nothing about, listen to this. I said, he didn't say anything about having money. He just says new home now. And so again, when God starts speaking to you, you got to start lining things up, getting things in order. So I said, we got to start paying these people off. Everybody that we owe, we got to pay these people off. And there's one creditor said, now, we were young. We was like in our 20s. He says, why don't you all file for bankruptcy? And I was like, we can't file for bankruptcy. We got to pay everybody we owe. And I said, if you file for bankruptcy, you can't get anything for 7 years. And I said, God spoke to me and told me we get a new home and it's going to be now. So he goes, oh, okay. So we paid off everybody we owed. And once we paid off everybody we owed, in the process, yeah, I'm going to have to tell this other story about how he blessed me with this really good paying job. So in the process, now that's going to come later. But anyway, I told him, I says, we riding around looking. I didn't even know how to go about buying a home, talking to realtors. So I started talking to my coworkers. And I said, how do you go about buying a home? And they was like, well, first you got to get a realtor. And they got to look at your credit and all this stuff. Now, we done paid off everybody we owe. Now, When you done messed your credit up, you done messed your credit up, and to God be the glory. This is for somebody that's watching this, just needs to hear this. When you done messed your credit up, you gotta wait, you gotta reestablish your credit. You gotta wait so long before anybody give you a chance, right? But I was on 1,000 because when God said now and new, honey, I was out of there. So we done managed to pay off everybody we owed. I went and talked to a couple of realtors. They looked at me and said, "What do you mean you want a new home? You can't get a new home." And this is how I was. And I mean, I guess I thought I was so naive, and I was to a point. And I was like, "Why can't I?" They was like, "Look at all this debt you were in, and you haven't reestablished your credit." Let me say this: is one thing about God, when He says now, that's what He means. He says now. That's exactly what He means. And He said, "You do what you need to do," but I said now, right? Okay. I looked at the man. I said, "Yeah, we owed everybody, but we paid everybody off. But God told me, new home now." He says, "Baby," he didn't say baby, he said, "Young lady," he says, "with the way your credit was, you haven't reestablished your credit." He says, "Nobody's going to give you an opportunity. Nobody's going to give you a loan." He said, "My advice to you is to reestablish your credit." I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So I left out. I said, "Okay, God, how am I going to do that?" So I go to this furniture company, and I go to this finance company that gives you loans. So I went to the furniture company. Honey, they pulled up my credit. She says, "No, ma'am, we can't do it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you." Left out. God said, "Go back." The next week I go back, and I did it again. Her name was Lavender. She says, "Veronica, we've already pulled your credit. You was just in here the other week." She says, "And I can't pull it again because we've already declined you." I said, "Oh, yes, ma'am. Okay." That's all I said. I left out, go home. God spoke to me on my job and said, "Go back." I'm at my machine. I said, "They done told me no." I'm sewing. I said, "They done told me no twice." And what make I said, "They're not gonna let me go, come in there again and say, yes, I'm sewing." He says, "Go back." And I kept hearing, "Go back." And it got in my stomach, "Go back." And I looked at Joanne, my coworker. I said, "Oh my God is keep pushing me to go back." I said, "Listen, I'm gonna share this with you because I'm gonna need a witness." I said, "God told me that I'm getting a home and it's gonna be new and it's gonna be now." And I says, "He's unctioning me to go back." And I said, "The realtors told me I can't get, I'm not going to be able to get approved for a home until I reestablish my credit." And I said, "I'm trying to reestablish my credit." I said, "And I done went to Shores Furniture and they done turned me down twice." I said, "But while I'm sitting here, God keep telling me to go back. I'm telling you this because watch them give me a loan today." I said, "But I want you to be a witness." She said, "Okay, okay." I left, and this is how, and the devil worked like this too. When I got halfway there, got in my mind, you crazy to go back up there again. So I turned around and went to my brother's house. Went to my brother's house, and I started talking to him, and it got on me so heavy. He said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "God keep telling me to go back to this furniture store, and I'm disobeying him. I gotta go." When I walked in, Lavender looked at me, the sales rep. She says, "You back again?" I said, "Yes, but this time God told me not to talk to you. I need to speak to your manager." She said, "Oh, okay, but she's going to tell you the same thing I did." I said, "That's not what God said. And this is me standing 10 toes down. Then lost everything, you know what I mean?" So go in the office. She says, "Veronica," she says, "I see you're very diligent. Why do you keep coming back and we've already turned you down 2 times?" So you're going to have to reestablish your credit. And before I went in there, I asked God, I said, "God, give me what to say to this lady." I says, "Ma'am, with all due respect," I said, "I know my credit was messed up in the past." And I said, "But we paid everybody off that we owe." I said, "And everybody that we go to keep telling us we need to reestablish our credit." And I said, "But God told me to come back and speak to you. And I'm asking you be the first one to give us an opportunity to reestablish our credit." She done tossed them papers, and she looking at me, and she says, I don't even know why I'm doing this." She says, "But I'm going to give you a chance." She says, But I'm only gonna extend you a $500 credit. I said, well, that's all I need, right? So I go out and I'm just looking for like an end table or something. Then she calls me back in the office. She says, no. She said, you're very serious. She says, no, I'm going to give you $2,500 credit. Now, that might not seem like much to you all or anybody else, but if you're going through, if you are where I was, this means a lot to you right now. Because when God got the favor, when you got favor of God on your life, I don't care what your credit look like. I don't care what your money in the bank look like. He's going to be all of that for you. So let me tell you this. Get the loan. Get the credit, right? For the furniture company. And I said, we just need to get one more. Went to the finance company. The exact same thing happened. They turned us down. When I went back to the finance company the third time, the manager that was there, he got mad and says, I don't know why you keep coming back. I'm not going to give you a loan. And I said, I know you're not, but God told me not to talk to you. He told me to talk to the one that's over you. And the area manager was there that day. And the area manager looked at me and says, wow, it must have meant to be for me to be here today, because I'm normally never in this location this long. And I told him my story and I said, God said, not me. I said, God said for you to extend us credit. And he did just that. Now, go back to me getting the house. Go back to the realtor. Now, by this time, 3-4 months had passed. Go back to the realtor. And the realtor says, okay, well, I see you've established your credit, but you hadn't had it long enough, Veronica. He said, the best I can tell you and your husband is that you can get a starter home. I said, I don't know what a starter home is. To God be the glory. This is helping somebody. I said, I don't even know what a starter home is, sir. He says, if you know what a starter home is, put it in the box below. I know what a starter home is, because I didn't know what a starter home was. And if you didn't know what a starter home was, a starter home is a rundown house. It's a fixer-upper, and it's like maybe 15,000 or 20,000 a house. It needs a lot of work done, and they'll give you a loan to get that, and with the prerequisite that you live in it for 7 years, paying your mortgage on time for 7 years, then you can get your dream home. I looked at him. I said, what? I said, look, I said, I don't know nothing about no starter home. I said, God didn't, listen how bold I was. I said, God didn't tell me starter home. God told me new home. And now he didn't say I'm going to have to wait 7 years. He said now. And he says, listen, to be as young as you is and have as much faith as you have, he says, I'm impressed. He said, but I'm telling you, he said, as a matter of fact, here's a book. Look at this, and look at these houses in here. What kind of houses? And he was being sarcastic. What kind of house is God telling you you're gonna get? And I was looking through. Now listen, I'm just all sold out. I'm looking through it, just smiling, happy. And I said, I don't see it. He said, out of all them houses, you don't see it. I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, well, how do you know it's your what your house look like? He said, how do you know what your house is gonna look like? I said, God is gonna show it to me. I'll know it when I see it. I left out of there and I told him, I said, you know what? I'm talking to the wrong person. I said, but trust me, I'm not gonna wait 7 years. I'm not going to wait 7 months, because God said now. He rolled back in his chair. He goes, wow. And as a matter of fact, when I get it, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show it to you. And he was a digging in church. He said, okay, I'll be waiting. I left out. I looked towards heaven. I said, God, you said if I make one step, you'll make two. Now show me where my house is at. I left there and I was telling my husband, I said, now God told me this much. New house now, and it's on a hill. And we passed this house that was sitting on a hill, but it wasn't new. I said, I don't know if it's that house. I said, but our house is on a hill. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, now mind you, by this time it's June. All this started like in April. In June, he came home. He says, Veronica, he was like, a guy at work told me that they're building new houses up at Piedmont Estate. He said we should go up there and look at them before they sell them all. It was on a Saturday. I was in the kitchen. I said, okay, let's go. We ride up there. Now, when we ride up there, now mind you, I said I'll know it when I see it. We pull in the driveway and ask me how the driveway was. You got it. It was going up a hill. And it didn't dawn on me at the time. Mr. Kilby was the guy that was over everything. And so we pulled up. He said, how can I help you? I was like, they said they're building new houses up here. And I said, we coming to look at houses. So I started conversating with him. And he said, well, you can buy this one right here. I said, well, what kind of house is it? He said, it's a tri-level. I said, with all due respect, I don't know what a tri-level is. And so he brought the blueprint. I didn't know how to read a blueprint. I said, I don't know what I'm looking at. So he called the guy up that was laying the brick. He says, bring me the picture of the house. He brought the picture of the house. And when I tell you, as soon as I saw it, my inside started jumping. I told my husband at the time, I said, Charles, this is it. This is our house. He looked, he goes, ooh, how much is this house? I said, it don't matter. God said, this is our house. And it's on a hill. So Mr. Kilby, he looked at me. He says, that right? I said, that's exactly right. I said, now let me tell you our story. So I told him the whole entire story, how we lost everything we had, how we paid off everybody we owed, how we done started reestablishing our credit, how we done went to everybody and everybody done turned us down. Through that conversation, Mr. Kilby, he looked at my husband and he says, I don't know what it is about your wife. He said, something about her, and I like her. He said, if she said this is y'all's house, it's y'all's house. I ain't gonna sell it to nobody else. And I said, well, the thing about it is, I said, we got to find a bank to approve us. And I don't know where to go now because I done been to 6 different places and everybody has turned us down. God's favor. Mr. Kilby looked at me. He says, I like you already. He says, you know what? Listen to this. He said, you know what? He said, I got a friend that owes me a favor. And because of you all's due diligence, and I like you so much, and I don't even know you, but it's something about you. He said, I'm going to call my favor in. And I want you all to guess who he had to call his favor into. I'll wait. He called his favor in to the loan officer at First Federal Savings and Loan. He called his favor in and told him, listen, I got this young couple and this is what they done been through. And the favor you owe me, I want you to extend them the loan for an $86,000 house. God said new. God said now. That was June. They finished building a house in October, October, either October. That was that June. By October, September, one of the two, they had finished the house and we moved in. Oh, you asked him how much money did we have to put down on it? Not one dime. I take that back. We only had to pay the closing costs. The closing costs. Now, I said all of that to say this. Put yourself in a position to hear the voice of the Lord. Because when he speaks, no matter how your finances look, no matter what your circumstances is, if he tell you it's going to happen, stand on it. I know a lot of these young people saying, I'm standing 10 toes down. Man, if you got 20 toes, stand 20 toes down. If you got 1 toe, stand 1 toe down on it. Because in the word, he said, all you need is the faith of a mustard seed. That's all you need. The faith of a mustard seed to move mountains. But just think if you got more than that. Just think if you got more than that. Even when people look at you and laugh, Even when people look at you and say, there's no way that this can happen, when God opened a door, trust me, walk through it boldly, because when he opened it, no man can close it. I got so many testimonies. So many times God has shown up for me. So many times I have heard him speak to me. And when I start speaking what he has told me was going to happen to my life, in spite of the situations that I was in spite of what my bank account looked like, in spite of what my credit was, I believed what he said. And for the person that's watching this, that's going through whatever it is you're going through, put yourself in a place and ask God to just show you and talk to you and tell you what you need to hear and which way you need to go. And when he tell you, stand on it. Stand on it. Because I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you. He is a man. He is a God that would not lie. His word will not return unto him void. And what I found out that works best for me in my darkest hour, when I stand 10 toes down, when everything is against me, and still speak what he done told me, that's when he show out. He show up and show out. He just show all the way out. You know how Michael Jordan used to show off on the court or whatever, LeBron, no, he just shows out. Because he wants people to know I am still a miracle worker. I am who I say I am. I'm still that. As my grandson say, I'm still him. I'm still him. Today, yesterday, and forevermore. What he's done for me, he'll do the same for you. Now, God, I thank you for allowing me to share my testimony this morning, because I know that whether it's for whoever's watching now, I have 30 people in the chat now, whether it's for you or for the person that's going to view this later on, it's for you. It is for you. And I tell you, God is so good. He's so merciful. He's so kind. And he want us to have the finer things in life. And yes, have I messed up in the past? Plenty of times. Excuse me, plenty of times. Have I disobeyed God? Plenty of times. But his grace and his mercy, I'm here to tell you, he's amazing. And I want to share a lot of my testimonies, because as I've been praying and talking to God, it's like I know everything that I have been through and endured, it was not just for nothing. It was for me to speak it and to tell somebody else that's watching me right now, or that's going to come back and view this video this evening, tomorrow, 2 years, 3 years from now, that it's going to do you some good. And this is for the person that is in the situation that I was in, to encourage you. Put yourself in a position to hear the voice of the Lord. And when he wake you at 3 in the morning, don't go back to sleep. I don't care how tired you is. Get up, wash your face, and sit down and say, okay, God, what do you want me to know? Turn that radio off. Get in a place and get in your word. God is right on time, Darlene. Big Rome, I'm trying to tell you. People don't believe. People don't believe that God is real. That's what I'm finding out. Mm. And in saying that, I said yesterday, this is crazy. This is so crazy. I said yesterday, I was like, you know, I'm around a lot of celebrities that's up here. And just to listen to them talk, I don't know who to believe in. I don't believe, and I said, and I'm going to be very transparent. I was like, wow, they got all this money, all this status, and they don't realize that it's him. And they don't know. Man, if I start talking and everybody been watching me doing my little thing here in the morning times, I said, who am I? Ain't nobody gonna listen to me. But this morning, when God woke me up at 2:43 in the morning, I started praying and I asked God. And as I'm asking God, I mean, who am I to say something to these people? I mean, they're not going to take me serious this and then the other. I don't want to get tempted by somebody coming and offering this and offering that, and then I dim my light just so I can be secure financially. Lord, keep me humble. Keep me humble. Keep me being your vessel to where I decrease, you increase in me, and you speak through me. As I'm saying this, it came to me. Although I feel like my light is so small, because I got him in my life, and because I know whose I am, I'm the biggest thing here. Because at some point, somebody gonna need to know. That's who you need to call on. It ain't your lawyer. Huh. It ain't him. And I said, God, I thank you for giving me that word. And I wanted to come on and share that with you all this morning. That no matter who you come up against, no matter what their status is, it doesn't matter. If God gives you something to say it. And say it boldly. Say it boldly. I went up and I prayed. I said a quick prayer for this person. And I'm not going to call their name because you all know them. And I had her on my mind. And before they went on stage, I grabbed her and I hugged her and I said a prayer with her. And she said, you don't know what that did for me. She just don't. She started crying. I said, to God be the glory. Let him use you and don't be ashamed. Hmm. Huh. Hmm. Look at me crazy all you want to. Huh. But I said, to God be the glory. To God be the glory. So I'm going to end this with a prayer that I wrote down this morning. And I pray that this touches the person that needs to hear this. And it comes from, if you all didn't hear me when I first came on this morning, I woke up this morning at 2:43 and asked God, what did he want to say to me? And he gave me Jeremiah, and I read Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 19. In essence, he's telling us he knew you when he put you in your mother's womb, and he will give you what to say when it's time to say it. And I'm just basically paraphrasing. So this is my prayer. Lord, I hear you. I receive your call. Silence my doubts and strengthen my heart, that I may feel unqualified, but I trust that you chose me for this reason. Let my voice carry your healing. Let it carry your hope. Let it carry your truth. Prepare to walk boldly in what you've placed in me, because I know you are with me. With that being said, amen. And you all have a great day. And I know that this blessed somebody, if not everybody on here today. Y'all be blessed.